Hello everyone and welcome to NetWiz's YouTube channel. There are some network protocols that some network engineers stay away from using. There are some protocols that frighten network engineers, and there is only one protocol that instills universal fear into most of them. The name of that protocol is of course VTP. Even William Shakespeare once said, "To VTP or not to VTP" in one of his plays. But don't worry, you don't need to be a Shakespeare to write a good play in Ansible. And today we are going to implement the replacement of VTP protocol using it. Now that we have populated our inventory with all 4 switches, it is time to dive deep into writing playbook. Yes, we are ready. To start with that, we need to get to grips with basics of YAML syntax. As you remember, YAML is a markup language whose purpose is solely to describe some variables. The most important constructs of YAML are single variables, which are written as key value pairs divided by a colon, dictionaries, which are as simple as a key value where value itself contains other key value pairs, and finally lists, which are just key with multiple values. These constructs can be nested in pretty much any way, shape or form. So for example, we can have a description of device, which represents a dictionary with one key named device1 and 2 values, first of which represents just a normal key value pair and the second representing a list. Or we can have a key called users, which represents a list of items, each item in which in turn represents a dictionary. So with those rules in mind, we can have a look at our first playbook. There is a convention that a YAML file should start with 3 dashes. This is not mandatory, but it is considered a good practice, so we will try to stick with it. At the top level of playbook hierarchy is a list of plays, and as we remember from previous slides, a list element is denoted by a single dash. And each play has some attributes that are defined in the beginning of it, like its name and the device group against which this play is going to be executed. Also, it has a list of tasks. Each task has its own name and the name of module which this task should be processed with. In our case, we are going to use module called iOS VLANs. The 2 parameters we are going to give are VLAN ID and name. The first one is a numeric value that denotes the created VLAN number, and the second one is the VLAN name. Simple, very. Let's type this playbook and try to execute it. So to do that, I'm going to create a new file called create VLANs .yaml. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to pretty much copy that information that we seen on the previous slide. So I'll give it a name, play1, create VLANs on switches. Hosts, I'll give it the host group, which is going to be our switches. And that name is actually, it should correspond to some group in our inventory. And then we give it a list of tasks with first one named task 1, create VLAN 100, module name iOS VLANs, and the parameters in it VLAN ID 100 and name customer 1, and the same for the second VLAN, name oops, that should be 200, name customer 2. That's done. Now, one important thing to remember in YAML is the indentation. the nested elements should always be indented relative to their parent element, and to do that you always need to use spaces, no tabs, otherwise you will receive an error. So with our playbook ready, I'm going to save it and run it. So to run the playbook, I'm going to use command Ansible -playbook, give our playbook name, create VLANs.yaml, and again add the parameter to ask for password because we don't store password in the inventory. Right, we've got an error here, no action detected in task. So that error means that the module name is incorrect. Let's just verify our module name, iOS VLANs. I might have misspelled it, so it might be called just iOS VLAN, not VLANs. Let's just change that and try to run it again. And this time it looks better. So yes, the module name was incorrect. Well, in the next slide, once we get this sorted and create our VLANs, I've got a link for you to have a look at the actual list of all possible Ansible modules, and there are lots of them. Right, so we've got information back that we have changed our devices. So these are codes for tasks. So task 1, we changed information on 4 devices. Task 2, we changed information on 4 devices. That means that we just created our VLANs. Let's verify that by showing VLAN information on switch in DC1. Brilliant, we can see that VLAN 100 and 200 exist now. And the same for DC2. Yes, we've got our VLANs created. So just like that, we automated the creation of VLANs across 2 different data centers. Now remember I mentioned the idempotency, the quality that it doesn't apply the same change twice. So now if I run the same playbook, we will see a different return code for our tasks. It should say OK and will be shown in green because it will check for existence of those VLANs on our switches, and it will find out that these VLANs are already created, so it will not attempt to add this configuration once again. And sure enough, as you see, we've now got everything in green, meaning that no changes were necessary on these devices. And this is it for this video, and as promised, here is the link that shows you the list of all the VLAN modules, and there are plenty of them. It also gives you some information about how to use these modules and even some very good examples. So I highly recommend you go by that link and learn what it can give you. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this video was helpful for you, and until next time.